Boop, boop, bop, bop, bing, bang, bo. All right, guys, welcome back to Pixel Panic, right? Maybe why is the thing so high? Regardless, welcome back to Pixel Panic. Today, we're diving into One World Under Doom, issue number 2. And Jesus, this is quickly becoming my favorite Doom story. If the first issue showed Doom taking control, this one is where he starts to legitimize that control, not just with power, but with philosophy. This is the hearts and minds issue, and it hits hard. We open with the Fantastic Four, Reed, Sue, Johnny, and Ben. They're fighting Hydra goons, right? Now, right away, you've got this juxtaposition. Hydra is always the shorthand for fascism in Marvel Comics, right? They're the group that screams Nazi analog. And here you have the Fantastic Four battling them while simultaneously debating whether Doom might actually be the good guy here. Reed's like, few citizens have seen fit to welcome Doom as a legitimate ruler. And Sue says, yeah, but few isn't the same as none. You know, some of our neighbors prove that. And Johnny says, I still can't believe anyone would want Doom to be their emperor. And Richard says, relatedly, I've been looking into the new schools and universities Doom has constructed. And Johnny, being the hothead, says, great, so what am I going to do? What am I going to burn down? Indoctrination centers, re-education compounds, some good old-fashioned mind control towers. And Reed says, well, that's the thing of it, Johnny. They're just schools. The curriculum thus far has been normal. More than normal. It's ambitious. I'd go so far as to call it laudable. As near as I can tell, they're just new, well-funded, and well-founded public services. And, they're all debating, Doom's always up to something. This is all while they're just fighting. Well, I wouldn't say fighting. This is while they're taking down some Hydra guys. Sue's caught in the middle here. She's a mother, she's a superhero, and she's watching this clash of ideologies within her own family. This is important because her daughter is about to make a very bold move. We cut over to Valeria Richards. Now, Valeria is genius level, like her father, but she's also a kid who has always had this weird, respectful bond with Dr. Doom. Doom, for all his arrogance, genuinely cares about her. And it's one of the rare times you see Doom's softer side. She calls her mom, right? Valeria calls her mom and says, hey, I'm just going to use the teleporter to visit my friend in New York. And her mom says, sure, be back by dinner. It's totally innocent, right? Except she just invited Doom over. So we cut to the Baxter building where the comic slows down and gets personal. Doom arrives and the conversation is all about trust and honesty. Valeria says a lie of a mission, not a fabrication, talking about what she told her mom. She says, I will meet him when we're done, but you and I don't play those games with each other, do we? We give each other the truth. And he says, we do. And Dr. Doom has his wall breaks down for a second. He says, you are a young woman who has already exceeded the high expectations I'd set for you at birth. You hold Doom's favor, Doom's respect, and Doom's love. Few have experienced the merest taste of any, and none have ever possessed all three. I keep no secrets from you, Valeria, and I shall continue to do so. And then she says, then give me that truth, Uncle Doom. Make me understand. Tell me exactly what you're planning. And Doom says the most Doom thing. He says, well, why tell Valeria when I can show? So Doom whisks her away. Just straight up teleports her. They go to a city in Canada, and that's where this philosophical debate kicks in. Valeria, the child genius, tries to justify democracy. She argues that people need choice, that self-rule is important. Freedom, it's what makes life meaningful, right? Doom just immediately dismantles that, point by point. He explains how democracy is flawed, how it leads to corruption, inefficiency, and suffering. Valeria fires back with the obvious counter, taking away people's freedoms is fascism. And Doom says, fascism is built on a lie. I've built my empire based on the truth. And that's chilling. Doom doesn't see himself as a dictator in the traditional sense, because in his mind, dictators deceive, they pretend. He believes he actually knows what's best, that his rule isn't tyranny, it's destiny. You know, this is really making us, the author is having us, putting us in this moral debate, right? Imagine you didn't know who Doom was. Imagine we didn't have this entire backstory of who he was. And you just saw a man who somehow came into power to rule the world, right? And he's providing schools, he's providing healthcare, he ended homelessness and starvation, open borders. He's doing all of this good. And then you see all these people attacking him, right? You have wave after Avengers, X-Men. I don't know. We're on issue 2, but you have these people are attacking him, right? You would think, why are they attacking him? Are they the bad guys, right? We obviously know that enough to not fall away from the heroes, but it's an interesting thought. Anyway, just like that, he teleports her back home, and there's a little bit of a power play. He gave her a taste of his worldview, then just completely left her to wrestle with it, right? And then the next scene, Doom is at the United Nations. He's addressing the entire world. And this speech, it's a masterclass. Doom lays it all out. He's abolishing borders. He says anyone can go anywhere. And then he twists the knife. He tells them any of your past leaders could have done this. Any president, any prime minister, any king. But none of them did it. He basically just delegitimized every leader on Earth in one sentence while elevating himself. It's manipulation 101. It's crazy. The Fantastic Four, they're coming up on the UN building, and there's a bunch of Doom bots, and Sue's like, hey, I don't see any victims in here. There's no superpowers, nothing crazy going on. Just take them out then. And he's like, just what I like to hear. And so he starts smashing, and then eventually they break in. Sue says he's the only one in there with superpowers. But Doom planned for it. He reveals that the weapons that his soldiers, he's like, hey, sure, you could fight me, but how about a bunch of innocent people? And it turns out, you see a bunch of guns lock and load. And Doom says, hey, just to let you know, like, he taunts them. He's like, Sue, what are you going to do? Crush them in your force fields? You're going to take them away? Just to let you know, those guns are going to explode if they unwillingly release them, or if they're destroyed or tampered with. And Johnny, being the hothead, tries to convince the soldiers that they've been duped. But Doom shuts it down. He goes, no. They knew exactly what they were doing before the weapons were picked up. I told them. That's just their devotion to the cause. And it's kind of crazy. These people are seeing this side of, they're like, oh, we have schools, we have healthcare. It's very interesting. But it's also terrifying, because it reframes Doom not as someone controlling people through fear, but through belief. His soldiers want to serve him, even at risk of their own lives, right? And then the craziest thing happens. Doom, he makes it personal, right? So I haven't been reading comics for very long, so I don't know if this is a thing that has ever happened, but Doom basically says, behold Benjamin Jacob Grimm, the powerhouse of the Fantastic Four, a man by error and ineptitude transformed into a monstrosity, a being so hideous he calls himself the Thing. And behold Reed Richards, our self-proclaimed smartest man who has failed to reverse Grimm's condition ever since. It is a staggering failure, a highlight remarkable even among the litany of disappointments of Mr. Fantastic. And then Ben says, don't listen to him, bud. I ain't mad at you anymore, and I ain't been mad for years. I made my peace with this. You understand? I like who I am now. It's like I tell my kids, it don't matter what you got. It don't matter what you look like. It only matters who you are, right? And then Victor says, but Doom wants what's best for everyone, even for his most hated enemies. These four accuse me of weakness, of anger, of greed, and yet in strength, in his greatness, In his generosity, Doom now grants what Richards never could. And then he lifts Ben up into the air and says, and thus Doom cures the unfortunate Benjamin Grimm of his condition forever. Now that's huge, you know. He says like the thing hates himself and it's Richard's fault. Reed could have healed him, but he never did. And then that all happens with the whole world watching. He's transmitting it all around the world, and he just healed Ben. Ben's a human again. And then just like that, he's like, I presume the Fantastic Four will pay for their damage to the United Nations building. If not, detain them. End transmission. And then he bounces. You know, and then you snap cut to all of these people that are saying, oh, you know, I was the old way working? Maybe. But, you know, Doom's getting results. And then at the end of the panel, it's Captain Marvel saying, hey, Avengers, we're losing. And it cuts to a round table of the Avengers, and everyone is discussing, and Iron Man's like, he's beat us before. And they're like, not like this, though. And so the last panel cuts to Captain Marvel saying, you know, as such, it transcends many of our old differences, which means, Avengers, that we now find ourselves with an unconventional group of allies. You know, it cuts to a full page, and immediately off the bat, who I recognize is Mysterio, Doc Ock, MODOK. I think that's supposed to be Mordo. And then there's a dude with red hair that I don't know, and a lady with red, you know, orange compared to him, red hair that I also don't know. That last page is a gut punch, right? Captain Marvel says the only way forward is to do the unthinkable. So, essentially to recap, right? We saw the Fantastic Four starting to question whether Doom might actually be doing good. Valeria had this philosophical one-on-one with her uncle, you know, who basically said fascism is fake, Doom is truth. Doom went global with a UN speech that obliterated the credibility of every world leader. You know, he won the propaganda war. He straight up healed Ben Grimm live on a worldwide broadcast. Essentially forced the Avengers to team up with villains. You know, this entire issue has been about escalation. In issue number 1, he seized power. You know, we didn't see it, but he did it, right? And then in this one, he justifies it. He legitimizes it. And he makes the world essentially start to believe it. And honestly, that's where we're going to leave it for now. But, geez, imagine being a hero in this world right now. Doom, he's not just winning, he's rewriting the rules. He's teaching a masterclass on how to take over the world, essentially. But until next time, click the clicky button, you know, click the like button, click the subscribe button, you know, slide the dingle dong over to the boop bop, and I'll see you, well, I won't see you. I'll talk to you later.